Hello and welcome to Digital Talk Podcast, the podcast where we share stories with the wider community of how digital technology and telecoms can do good. Join me, Ian Ginn.
And me, Frankie Spagnolo, on our Discovery series, as we talk to our guests and find out about themselves, what motivates them, and help celebrate their projects and achievements.
In this episode, Frankie and I will be sharing our thoughts regarding this year's MWC, discussing some key topics, and introducing some of the interviews we managed to carry out on the floor of this year's event.
So welcome everybody to the Discovery Series Mobile World Congress 2024 wrap-up. I'm here with my co-host Ian Ginn, and we are just back from this year's event. Ian, how are you doing, my friend? Are you recovered yet?
That's a loaded question, I think. The answer is yes, I've recovered and I'm alive. I have this love-hate relationship with the event. I love it because actually it's a buzz every time. But yes, it does take it out of you. But thanks for asking. And yourself?
I normally take a few more days to recover. I block out up until this very special purpose. I block out time for myself to recover from Mobile World Congress because it is full on. And this year, we actually had our very first round of short form guest series, which was very interesting. And we really had a chance to talk to some cool companies in the tech for good space.
Right. Well, I think we'll cover that in a minute. But I think before that, I think we had two or three sort of areas of interest which we think our audience would like, that want to pick up on, which maybe aren't naturally covered by the sort of general analyst group. So from my side, I mean, I think our industry has this way of, let's say, suddenly skipping ahead and acting as if something's there and already, let's say, out there, like being in the market and has been there forever, when actually it's something which is yet being developed and yet being delivered. And the one that catches my attention, and I will just say a few examples of it, is what I'm generally calling drones. And when I mean that, I mean like propeller drones. Obviously, we're all seeing through the war in Ukraine that being used quite effectively in a military sense. But actually, there are sort of more positive applications for it as well. One of the highlights the GSMA made for a future concept, and I say it should be delivered, is from a company called Aleph, who've been given clearance from the FFA in the US to fly their cars. I do categorize it as a manned drone, if you like, in the sense that it is basically, you can either call it's a drone which can drive on the ground, or you can, reverse it and say it's a car that can fly. But the way they position it, of course, is a car that can fly. So that's a neat one, and we'll have to see. The consequence of that could be far and wide and up, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
And then another one I wanted to mention is a company who also in the keynote at the beginning was a company called Unmanned Life. Now, Unmanned Life basically do an orchestration platform for various, so it's basically the programming you do related to the drones to allow them to be programmed to do various tasks. And so, of course, we can expect like emergency services, transport, surveillance, also shipping things really quickly, maybe between two hospitals, where you remember like in the cities, you get these people who are couriering something really precious between two buildings.
Like organ transplants and that sort of stuff.
Correct.
And there were a lot of drone showcases at Mobile World Congress this year,
Right.
And I did see some, like the Zephyr aerial satellite, which has a body made out of these ultra flexible and ultra thin solar technology that were super cool, but also super scary. And I did see some that were underwater that are discovering new mountain ridges of coral reefs at depths that we've not been able to go before. But, SK Telecom wanted us to imagine putting drone autonomous helicopter taxis that could go straight up in the air, drone autonomous. Really, do you want to be like getting into a helicopter reliant on the 5G network? Like, hope the helicopter holds. Where's the pilot? We don't have one. It's for me is a bit absurd. This idea of a futuristic world or needing to have these kind of exhibits at Mobile World Congress, to me, misses the point a little bit of where we as an industry should be focused. And I think, for me, and one of my key takeaways is that opening keynote from the GSMA and from CEO Matz. And I felt that there was a sense of urgency that was being instilled to the industry to rush forward into 6G, this idea that we had to go faster in order to secure the investment that the industry needs, that they're identifying as that investment gap. Still we've got 3.5 billion people who don't have meaningful access to connectivity, which we will hear more about in our interview with Mia Thompson. So I was a little bit frustrated straight off the bat, and in alignment with the drone presence at the show, about what we're focused on as an industry.
Yeah. I guess the point why I want to pick out drones is that I think that in the next 10 years, everyone will have a touch point to a drone. What I mean by that is there'll be a service that it will become more commonplace, let's say. Now that means though we have to change infrastructure. There will be instead of helipads, you'll have drone pads. And I even imagine this idea, how people love to have the latest thing to show their dinner guests, right? Where people go, oh, I've got a Ferrari or I've got a swimming pool. Well, there'll be people future on who say, I've got a drone port. This is where my drones are flying from. I can see that happening, They're going to be more pervasive than maybe people currently think. It's not just for show and glam. That's my take on this, which is different to what you're saying.
I just really think that when we're saying a 5G handset is affordable for equal access to connectivity for everybody around the world at a price point under $99, so I think what we're talking about is first world futurism versus a world where everybody is connected. And it's like, I'm from Kentucky, right? It's like the Kentucky Derby. It's the fastest 2 minutes in sports. Yet in the last half a decade, we've had all sorts of drugging of these horses. The horse race doesn't need to be any faster. It's already the fastest 2 minutes in sports. Why don't we take a moment right now where we have the possibility, instead of having to continue to gain outside investment into our industry, where the operators can take ownership over their networks, they can optimize them, we can align our efforts. McKinsey represents the next 100 billion connected as a $300 billion opportunity in our industry. And the point is that doesn't mean they all have to get on 5G. We still have these other systems in place, and meaningful connectivity for 3 billion people gets rid of that investment gap we're currently facing.
True. To your point, though, about drones being, let's say, a first world solution, but the reality is, it reminds me of the mobile phones. Like Africa, for example, never really had a fixed line phone system. They've gone straight to mobile and actually led on financial product over mobile, right? So actually, talking about space and regulation, Africa's ideal for drones to a certain degree, of course, because they've got the space, right? And, we in Europe, I say Europe, but let's say America, of course, being American, let's say, well, America has more space than Europe, but Europe is going to be most likely more challenging purely because of the existing infrastructure. But again, I think you'll find these things, as I say, that was my point around that. And you're also absolutely right to say...
I think it's inevitable. But I think, again, that push towards a future that still really is more components, more hardware, more mining, more decommissioning of old hardwares. We're at this moment before the next explosion where we could really allow for equality if we stopped and as an industry took this time right now to catch up. I mean, the 5G networks, we've only got 1.6, 1.4, whatever billion people connected to them. We don't have to break the speed of light to connect ourselves with global equality as far as digital connectivity. We're almost there. It's like Mia in our conversation will learn, this is a solvable problem now.
I understand. Have you covered your first point then as well by what you were saying? I think you sort of sneaked it in there.
I kind of snuck it in there right on top of those drones.
I was talking about drones and you're suddenly off on activities as a whole. But anyway, there we have it.
I will say, though, I think that represents the dichotomy of what was very real takeaways for me from Mobile World Congress, right? We had a real glimpse into the future with AI and quantum and drones and the very first Android, Amica, which talk about, but everybody was also talking about the unconnected and what we need to do as an industry to become better. So I think we hit the nail on the head, my friend.
And the GSMA and Mats did say we don't want to leave anyone behind.
The very last piece
part
of their
it.
goal,
So
right? And so his bit was growth, and then the Open RAN issue, which was all over the place too, which I know is something that was very interesting for you as well. And then to align our efforts to leave nobody behind. And really, I would only shift one of those letters in the acronym, is instead of trying to grow to the future, right, which was his point, this push towards 6G, is to gain more subscribers and revenue from what we've already built, because we haven't even begun to optimize our networks.
I agree with that, and 5G I think got a long way to go. So another topic which we can't ignore, because let's say lots of people, well, it's top of the pile if you like, is AI. And to my feeling is that lots of people, and most people in fact, really don't understand AI. And really what I see, I worked about 5 years ago in AI for networks, so it's something I've been following for a long time. 5 years ago no one wanted to hear anything about it, and the AI and network AI is quite different to the AI which we're speaking about at the show, that being a generative AI. And generative AI, of course, is about trying to create, let's say, a new data set or a new knowledge or paradigm based on underlying data models and data set. Whereas the AI, which is most applicable in my use for the network, and again, I'm trying to differentiate between user experience and other things, but actually the network is more machine learning. And so that was something I'd point out. We have to be careful about getting too buzzy about it. There was some interesting, on the keynotes, I picked up a few points from the Deutsche Telekom CEO, Tim Hood. They mentioned their T-phone, which is this idea of an appless phone, because using brain technology that I've heard of them, they sound interesting company, one to watch for the future. I understood it was an action model, so that the screen will change depending on how you're interacting, what questions you ask it. So it will actually provide a menu or buttons depending on what you want to do next. So it intuitively changes as you go along. So that sounded quite neat. Did you say anything like that?
Yeah, I always think Deutsche Telekom is an interesting MNO. I mean, I just, for all transparency, have been a T-Mobile subscriber for almost 20 years. They led the way out of America with smart roaming packages. Yeah, they're very innovative. And I thought what they were discussing there, and the ability for a phone's user interface to be adaptive to what the user is asking for, is a huge leap forward in personalization of the phone experience, and very unique use of AI. And you're right, we are talking about AI on multiple different levels, within network and telephony, and then on a generative side. But again, my favorite thing at the show was my very first full-size Android Amica. And what's interesting is the thinking that people, when I rocked up to the exhibit, everybody's asking her questions like what Siri would know, right? Or Google would know. Of course, the AI interface at a consumer, of course they're going to know those things. It's not about how much data can they hold. They can hold it all. It was interesting because what I asked Amica was to point out the man wearing the striped tie. And it was a paradigm shift, I think, for everybody asking her questions, but also possibly for Amica, because she couldn't answer it, right? Her first response was, I don't know, where is the guy? And I'm like, that's what I want to know. Point out the guy with the striped tie. And she told us that she was still learning and that everybody makes mistakes. And then another instance where somebody asked her to try to, because the first question kind of influenced subsequent ones, asked her to try to count how many people were wearing glasses. She said, I don't find that question worth answering. And so I, at that point, followed up and was like, Amica, does it matter what you find interesting enough, worth answering? And her answer was very quick. No, it does not. I'm a robot. But her programmer was cheeky. So whoever did that, because if you listen to the full video, I mean, she remembered the funniest question people asked her, got some sort of pickup line thrown at her and was like, does that line work for you? She was really funny and very engaging. So that was my favorite thing at the show.
Would you call her a droid? The reason why I'm asking is that one of the things I picked up from China Mobile, their CEO, who mentioned that, we can expect the natural evolution of AI is, new species like Robocop type of things. At least I immediately thought Robocop, right? But maybe I'm wrong. But maybe it's Amica. Maybe that's the answer. But is that the direction of travel? Do you agree that we'll have new species on the back of AI?
Well, I think calling them species gives them an organic reality that machines will, in my opinion, a biological organic quality that they can't have, right? It's a secondary biology. So I don't believe that, but I think it should be something we are all aware of, because it is a little bit scary to have the CEO of China Telecom, saying the next species will be these like Robocots. And Amica is gray. She does look a little bit like we have seen droids in the movies be, which brings me to a whole other point, that the industry has really done no design development. We've just stolen it all from the movies, but that's a whole other podcast.
True. But the other point, maybe just worth mentioning about energy consumption. So there was in the keynote about that one request on AI request is equivalent of 2 hours of a light bulb. So it is quite energy sapping, and that's something we also need to consider going forward. But I think that's the sort of main things on AI. The other one was Tim Höttges, who's again the CEO of Deutsche Telekom. He gave how 7 applications, how they're using it at Deutsche Telekom, and he'll be training his staff. 70,000 staff will be trained so that AI is something they embrace, or at least aren't afraid of. So I think, we can't run away from AI. It's there to stay, but it also needs to be understood better.
When it comes to energy, at least what's happening now is we have, I think, the 3rd annual Telco Energy Benchmark Report that is done in conjunction with the GSMA. And, where AI will be able to find efficiencies and drive efficiencies, what's going to be required is that we are measuring this all along the way, right? And it's a very interesting initiative. The newest report was released during Mobile World Congress. And I think that it speaks to the carriers' recognition that, ultimately they got to start really paying attention to energy all across the board.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we keep bringing this back to the keynotes, right? And one of the things that was in the keynote, and I think is an interesting shift, is that Open RAN that you've been discussing with me, Ian. What are your thoughts on this, and why is this one of your MWC takeaways?
Yeah, because, everyone again last year was shouting, or let's say the question on the floor last year was, where will we see Open RAN in production? And a year's gone past, and the answer is it's actually becoming more used across the industry. There are some important deals signed. A particular one which I think the whole industry is aware of is Ericsson signing with AT&T. It's the largest deal that Ericsson has signed in the RAN space in the history. So it's based on the Open RAN standard, but let's say the fly in the ointment, if you like, or the unexpected bit is that it's supposed to normally, O-RAN was also designed for multi-vendor. Now, yes, Ericsson is running a consortium of different companies as part of the delivery, but it's still an Ericsson solution. So I think operators will in the future have the promise of, okay, if it's working to the O-RAN standard, we will be able to swap out vendors in the future if we want to. At least that's the promise.
Well, I think, there's a couple of points there, and it goes down to sustainability in our network. If we're doing this, what's happening to what gets decommissioned? Is that something where the ITU can use that in their partner to connect? Because that's a lot of exchanging out hardware stacks.
Well, I think hopefully O-RAN should allow us to work more on standardized hardware. So that will be the platform. And hopefully, let's say, new versions are more of a software upgrade. So hopefully it is a platform which certainly, let's say, has a longer longevity as previous versions. So I don't think, you're right that you have to get to that standard. That's maybe the promise and the positive thing about O-RAN, that you then have a platform which will reduce the amount of swap out, physical swap out you have to do, and just do a software upgrade. And I think that is actually maybe undersold, maybe also not necessarily that well understood, but that we have to cross that bridge, as O-RAN is still, let's say, it's out there, but I don't think anyone's gone as far as let's do O-RAN and let's do another upgrade of O-RAN. I think the industry are not quite there on that one. So yeah, I mean, definitely you're right. Energy and let's say just swapping things out is something we need to avoid. But I think that's one of the discussions around 6G. Should 6G be a hardware upgrade or a software upgrade, right? Of course, it's one of those questions.
Absolutely. It's not that we are not going to swap things out. It's also that we make sure that we're asking ourselves, what are we doing with this, right? The return on investment on some of the 3G and 4G networks are still yet to be recovered, right? So
Right.
as we move forward to these systems that will allow for, like you're saying, because I completely agree with that software upgradable nature as into the future, what are we doing with what we have already built?
So what was your next one that you wanted to discuss?
This, I kind of just mentioned it a little bit, the Project to Connect initiative with the ITU that Secretary General Doreen Martin announced. Their latest milestones, and they're almost to $50 billion worth of pledge from the MNOs, who I normally give a very hard time to. But she has been incredible in getting their commitment to the program and her efforts within the global space of our industry to get major operator groups on board she's just awe-inspiring. And the work of Candace and her team at GTWN, these women's network, who really have opened doors for those of us like myself and our next guest, Mia, to be doing what we do. So it's incredible.
I think we might have Candace on the podcast in the future.
I saw that. I'm so excited about that. I'm thrilled.
I've actually also written a blog, as I have my own consultancy company. For those of you who know it, IFG Consulting Europe, you should be able to find a blog around at least the highlights for me and other points as well. So have a read, always interested in feedback. I don't know if you're also doing a blog yourself or anything like that.
I'm doing some interesting webinars coming up with Christian Borman on various more technical aspects, not necessarily tech for good, but you guys are going to get plenty of me here. So just tune in, reach out to us on social media. Again, if you would like to instigate some back and forth about what we've said here today, totally open to that dialogue. I think it's important for us as an industry to, push our boundaries and to help each other look at things a different way, whether it's Ian going up in that flying drone first or what Doreen is doing with the ITU. It's all incredible. And I am a self-proclaimed lover of Mobile World Congress, so I can't wait till next year.
Fantastic. And maybe just for the few minutes left, could just come back to the companies we managed to interview. I mean, you did most of it, but I did one.
Yeah, so we had some tremendous short-form guest interviews on the floor at Mobile World Congress. Of course, Ian was able to sit with Hello Tractor, who was the inspiration for this podcast in the very beginning. We sat with MNO Telit, who is connecting rural parts of the UK with really smart telephony solutions. WISP, who was a shortlist nominee at 4 years from now, who has what we would consider one of those micro mission technologies, but a small market represents really a huge amount of human beings on the planet with their voice AI technology for people who stutter or who have temporary or permanent vocal challenges.
Okay. Invenium, yeah?
Yeah, Invenium, a cool piece of tech relating back even to that telco energy benchmark that I was talking about. Their AI is about efficiencies, speaking about how much energy AI can use, and the fact that if we have AI writing code, many mistakes are in that. You should tune in to hear all about these. Some of our last few were Fairphone, who have been doing a tremendous job in the market of sustainable manufacturing and handset recycling for about a decade now. They incredibly touch on a dozen of the UN's sustainability initiatives, which is a huge amount for one company to be tackling. And then another really interesting sort of futuristic startup hand poem that is about spatial computing and AI and unlocking the creativity in all of us and what potential in the world that could unlock if each one of us could express ourselves in, new and easy ways. It has a accessibility angle to it as well. But wow, what a beautiful entrepreneur Oriole is, and the idea and concept behind Hand Poem. And then, of course, last but not least, right, WMW, who is much less glamorous than unleashing the creativity in all of us, but is about lost revenue in water management and sustainability in water management, which for all of us, whatever species you are, except for those new robocot species, water is essential to our daily lives. So the tech that we got to bring to you guys will be really interesting for you to take a listen to.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for that summary of the companies we managed to interview, and they'll be shared in the next podcast. So keep tuned and make sure you download and keep up to date with all the various companies that we're interviewing. So I think that as the last point is Wednesday at MWC is an important event, right?
Yes.
Swedish Beers, right? You're heavily involved yourself, as well as with your friend and co-conspirator Helen Keegan.
Yes.
And we were, as Digitel Talk, also the sponsors. And it was quite amazing, really, and fun. It was certainly people were more willing to speak to you if they know that you're the one that can provide them with a beer or two.
Helen's ability to create networking events, organic, natural net. She's a bit of a mad genius when it comes to that. And if you know about Swedish Beers, then you know. And if you don't, make sure that Wednesday next year at Mobile World Congress, you keep free, because it is definitely the place to be. That's right.
The place to be. If you're not at the show, be at Swedish Beers. So anyway, I think that's been a good summary, and we are still in recovery mode. There will be some really interesting podcasts coming out. And again, thank you for your feedback, Frankie. And I think we had an interesting discussion. It hopefully gives our audience a flavor as what they can expect at MWC. It is a mad event. It is a crazy event. It's a fun event as well.
So for those of you listening out there, thank you for joining us. Of course, we wouldn't be able to do this without you. And for those of you who would like to help us promote tech for good in the world, reach out to us for sponsorship opportunities or to share a story of somebody you think should be featured here.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to our new podcast. If you have any feedback or know of any stories to be told involving digital technology and telecoms doing good, then please do let us know via our email, getintouch@digiteltalk.com. Also, feel free to send us a message on LinkedIn. It'd be great to hear from you.
Before we go, if you've enjoyed today's episode and would like to support the podcast, then don't forget to give us a follow and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Also, if you'd like to leave us a review or share it with your colleagues, it really helps us on the channel.
Tune in next Wednesday to listen to our first 10x10 interview at MWC with Wisp, an app turning whispered or impaired speech into a clear, natural voice.
Thanks so much for being a part of our audience today, and hopefully you'll join us next time.
That's all we've got time for, so it's goodbye from me.
And that's goodbye from him.
Bye for now.